WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. And today I have the Clydeside Distillery Stobcross. Finally, Whiskybase number 193442. Now, this is the inaugural bottling, the inaugural release. I like the label. It does look a little bit like a gin bottle, but hey, I'm not complaining. Good job. 46%, yay. Non-chilled filtered, yay. Non-chilled natural color, yay. So they're doing a lot of things correctly here. Natural color, non-chilled filtered, yes. And 46%. Now, what I am going to say, though, is over here in Germany, when it originally came out, I got a few bottles here from the wholesaler here in Germany, the importer. 46 euros 50. Beautiful, beautiful price for an inaugural release. The first shipment evaporated within days. Everyone wanted to try this new whiskey, the new one, hyper, hyper, hyper. And so the distiller, the importer in Germany had to actually reorder and received a few more pallets of this. And then by then, it was almost around Christmas time, the price had gone from the 46.50 to 80 euros. Supply and demand. And everyone that actually got their bottles, or many, not everyone, many of the shops that got their bottles had looked online and said, well, the recommended retail sale price should be about 40 something, but everyone else is selling for 80. Why don't I sell it for 80 as well? And so the price, boop, went up. Now the wholesaler, the importer can't really do much about that because there was a supply and demand issue, and then, oh well. Now, there are a few shops over here in Germany still selling it here for 65 or 63, but many are at the 80 euro mark and even ones at 100 euros. All right, so if you go to the Clydeside distillery, it's 45 pounds. All right, good. What am I going to compare it to? I am going to compare it to Nichneen. Why? Because Nichneen is a young, new distillery that's doing fantastic things. Now, this is not a batch that I'm going to compare it to, but I just wanted to have the bottle here so you can actually see the wonderful design and enjoy this. I have batch 2. I just let batch 1 float right on by with Nichneen back there in 2020. There was just too much hype going on, and I wasn't willing to do click, click, click and try to use my nepotism here to get a bottle of anything. And what am I also going to compare it to? I'm going to compare it to Lindort's Abbey, an inaugural release. So, I like Lindort's Abbey for some reason. I don't know why. A lot of the single cask stuff and other things that have come to Germany since then have not really rocked my boat. But this inaugural release, every single time I have it in the bottle, I am more than convinced and surprised. So this is Whiskybase number 166994, 65% STR cask, 35% then bourbon. I think Dr. Jim Swan, the late Dr. Jim Swan, had his fingers also in Lindort's Abbey. He definitely had it up with Annabelle at Nichneen, and he also had it here with Clydeside. This is a mixture of sherry, bourbon, and ex-wine barriques. And here we have predominantly bourbon and some sherry. Now, I would like to just briefly talk about the history of a place called Morrison. Now, why am I going to briefly talk about that? Because on the bottle it says Morrison, Glasgow. So, I was at Bowmore Distillery a few weeks ago. And there I was in front of the wash backs, and I saw the signs of all the owners. And one of the owners was called Morrison. Stanley P. Morrison, that is going to be the grandfather of Andrew Morrison here, started in 1951 a whiskey brokerage business, independent bottler. And in 1963, 12 years later, he bought the Bowmore Distillery, the oldest distillery of Islay. Not only that, 7 years later, in 1970, he bought Glengarry, and then 14 years later, he actually bought Auchentoshan. So in 1984. Now, 1996, the guy's been now in business here for 43 years. He sells the family business of Morrison Bowmore Distillers to Jim Beam. And for me, looking back, it's gonna be a good deal for Beam Suntory. Yeah, they made a lot of money, and he cashed out. So now the son of Stanley P. Morrison, Tim Morrison, actually 8 years later starts his own independent bottling company called A.D. Rattray. Oh, you've heard of them, haven't you? I have. And then Tim and Andrew. So Tim is the father, Andrew is the son. They buy in 2011 the Queen's Dock Pump House, and they set up Morrison Glasgow Distillers Limited. Now, the very, very, very interesting thing is the great-great-grandfather of Andrew Morrison actually completed the pump house at the Queen's Docks in Glasgow. His name was John Morrison in the year 1877. So the circle actually closes. So the great-great-grandfather of Andrew actually built the pump house that they are now in as a distillery. I think that's kind of cool. All right, so 2011 they buy the property. 2017 they start actually producing. A lot of building issues and foundation problems and postponing and delays in building, but they finally actually have everything. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. They put the pot stills actually right on the banks of the Clyde, and they put a glass like an observatory around it, just a glass walls around it so everyone can see it, lit it up, and it looks beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It wants to be a tourist destination. It would like to have 60,000+ visitors a year, and they produce about 500,000. They have the capacity to produce about 500,000 liters of alcohol each and every year. All right, so that's Morrison. All right, A.D. Rattray, and so on. All right, very, very good. So we have 3 new distilleries. All of the new distilleries actually being built today are not being built like in 30, 50, 100 years ago for the blend industry. These are all made to be producing single malt, and nothing but single malt to be bottled as single malt. Nothing for the blend industry. Well, maybe a little bit on the side, but even today, where was it? I think it was Deanston produces 80% for blends. Glenfarclas produces 60+% for blends, and Tamdhu produces over half of their stuff for blends. And I mean, that's okay. But these new distilleries are not producing for the blending industry. They're producing for themselves and for the single malt enthusiasts like us. That's why all of the entry-level products they're doing are almost exactly the same. 46%, yay. Non-chilled filtered, yay. No color added, yay. An integrity malt, as Ralphie would say, and that's actually awesome. Let's nose these, the Clydeside. Now, the one thing I must admit is this Clydeside cannot at all deny its youth. It's young. There is some little bit of vanilla icing. There is a little bit of a sweetness of the barley, but there's a lot of alcohol sharpness in here. And I get pear. I normally don't get pear. That shows me, now if I ask someone about the distillery character, I'm going to get pear and green apple of the new make. And that's what I'm getting here. It's very, very, very young new make. It's almost 4 years old. So it's over 3, but that's that. Now, I and Lindor's Abbey, we like each other for some reason. At least this inaugural release. Older, more caramel, less of a fruit, a little bit more of the wine moment going on here. Less of the distiller's pear and green apple. More of a light red berry. Much more settled. And the neat batch 2 STR casks, bourbon. Now on the nose, Linder's Abbey wins. Second place goes to McNeed, and third place goes to Clydeside. So sorry, guys. There's a little bit of a overripe pineapple going on here in the nose. Trying to phrase it in as nice of words as possible. Now, I did my German video, so this is just back to back. I'm going to do my English video now. So I've had all of these already once today. So I almost know my ranking before we even start. That's important because the very first time I tried this, I thought it was just me, but it's actually this whiskey that's somewhat hot and somewhat young, in my opinion. Slanche. That end, that finish. Wow. It's hot. There's more wood than I would actually expect from such a young whiskey. They are using first fill bourbon. They are using first fill sherry, apparently. And to get that mix right at the beginning, sometimes the second fill is also nice. There's a little bit of a peppery type of alcoholic type of bite in this one. There is the barley sweetness. There is a little bit of that vanilla going on in there. There's a tiny little bit of that, I'm going to repeat myself again, green apple and pear moment. But there just is not the complexity that I would expect from a whiskey here for this price point. To be honest, I would rather drink a Glenfiddich 12. To be honest, this whiskey is at a price point in my world of whiskeys of about 35 euros. And that's considering the fact that it's an inaugural release. For that experience that this glass is giving me, I would be willing to pay 35 euros for another bottle. I would not be willing to pay the growing price at the moment of 80 euros. Now, I could get this for 45 pounds at the distillery. As a souvenir, if I'm there, excellent. 10 euros on top of that, basically, or 10 pounds on top of that because of that effect and that feeling and all that going on there. So, okay, good. Maybe 45, but I wouldn't re-buy this bottle. The first time once, yes. The second time, no. So there have not been any other releases yet so far from Clydeside. They did do a COP 26, but that is not really what we're looking at. And there are a few people that have put their hand fill at the distillery. Bottle 2022, there was cask number 892, 893, and 60.4 and 60.6%. What did they pay for that? 65 euros. I'm sorry, 65 pounds. Wow. That's actually might be worth it. Who knows? So, yeah. Linder's Abbey, we're good friends, at least the inaugural release. Every time I taste this bottle, I go, oh, wow, that's better than I expected. Even on the nose. Now, there is a kind of a little bit of a letdown towards the end. There is a little bit of bitterness in the aftertaste that's not perfect. The whiskey should be doing this, but it does this, and it goes back down to this. That red wine, the wine barriques are there. There's a depth to this whiskey, and it has a complexity as well as a higher age feeling. It feels older. There's more to this whiskey. There's the caramel. There's the red fruit. There's the spiciness of the oak. There's the vanilla sweetness of the barley. I'm not sure if the sherry I get, but I do get the wine barriques here. An excellent, excellent whiskey, and it's still available. They produce so many that it's still available. And I just love the fact that the flippers are just kind of disappointed because they said, oh, I'm going to buy 20 and then sell them for 200 a piece, make 100 euros in each one, and nothing like that's going to happen because there was so freaking many of them that there was no problem of supply and demand. And I really, really adore what Lindor's Abbey is doing there. So the last one is going to be McNeed. Animal was actually in the on TV in Germany, and the problem was then everyone wanted to buy this whiskey. So people went online and was like, oh, an organic whiskey. Oh, a female-led team. Oh, they're doing sustainability. Let's buy the whiskey. Let's support this. And they sold out. Every single time there was a new batch, it sold out. And within days and days and days. And finally, after months, they caught up. But it's just amazing what they're doing there. And I enjoy this whiskey as well. This has a lot of transitions. Cheers. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Even towards the end, the finish is the best on the Nicneen. Don't forget, I have batch 2. They've adapted since then and changed. I think they're batch 17 at the moment. I don't know. Um, but there's a tiny little bit of ginger spice and pepper in this. But it's, as I said, transitions very, very well made. Those SDR casks, those ex-bourbon casks, harmonize perfectly. They're doing a great thing. Love the bottle. Don't love the packaging. I punched a hole in mine so that I could actually, so the air dissipates and so on. They're working on it, I know. But in general, what they're doing is great. All right. So, oh, by the way, Clydeside, the draft, if you distill and if you actually do your mash tun, after you do the distilling, you have pot ale. After you do your mash tun, you have draft. And the draft goes to actually a biogas facility in Scotland where they turn it into energy, electricity and heat. And so we don't, in the new distilleries, we don't feed cows with it. We actually recycle that product and turn it into energy, which I think is fantastic. So Clydeside has a fairly good CO2 balance as well. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a tiny little bit of water to each of these. First, second, third. This is a C whiskey in my book. C minus, but a C whiskey. Value for money, £45. I paid 45 euros originally for this. I would give that a C. The price is at now 63. I'd give it a D. And the price is actually at almost everyone's trying to sell this now for 80 euros. I would give it a D minus. This is not an 80 euro whiskey. It was never intended to be an 80 euro whiskey, but that's the way the prices are at the moment. If you can find it for the 45 pounds, the 45 euros, the $55, and you want to give it a try, buy the bottle, share it with some friends and see what they like, what they think. What nice website, nice information. They're doing a lot of things right, but it's just a little bit too young. Someone here could have said, hey, let's wait a couple more years. There's a distillery that Roy and Aquavita and the Barflies love. It's called Atnemochen. And Atnemochen, they waited a few years more. Adelphi, an independent bottler, just like AD Rattray here with Morrison. They were, okay, we can wait the 6 years. And I think that would have done this whiskey justice. So I'm looking forward to what they're producing in the future, but they have now started their distribution network. They got the whiskey out there, and I'm sure the next whiskey, I hope the next whiskey is going to be as good or maybe even better than this. The interesting thing is the 46% stands up to water. That little bit of wood, a little bit of that, a little bit of sherry, that green apple, that pear moment is predominant in my case. And it still does this. Do not like that finish. All right, my question of the day, I've mentioned a few different distilleries here. What of the new, young, wild bunch of distillers that have actually came upon the scene the last 10 years, I'm gonna reduce it down to 10. So no Kilhoman, no Aaron. So the last 10 years since 2012, what are the new distilleries that you actually have the most hope that they're going to make awesome, fantastic spirit? Lindor's Abbey, maybe. McNeid, yes. Clydeside, I really hope so. One of the things I'm watching very closely, Annandale. Also Lowland Distillers. They have some interesting stuff out there. So what is the brand that you're watching at the moment? Which one do you have your eye on and you're going, oh, let's see what happens there in the next couple of years? Please write that down in the comments. Thank you very much. So, inaugural release here from Lindor's, batch number 2 from Nick Need, and for me, our last one is going to be here, our Stobcross, the inaugural release from Clydeside. Nice, but not worth the price people are asking for at the moment. Thank you very much for watching, subscribing, telling others, and maybe even sharing. All the best. Bye-bye.